Oh, it's happening.
All right. I think we're live. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Good.
Good.
Thumbs up. Cool. Hey, what's going on, everybody? David Jones here at Tenacious D Jones over on Twitter. Here with my boys Stix, Picks, and Ghost, Bets by Ghost. We're going to be breaking down the Week 2 DFS slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. And yeah, we're going to hop right into it. Promo code SICKO, 50% off over at windailysports.com to read our articles, look at the projections, use the optimizer. Some optimizers are down. Ours isn't. You can come use ours. That'd be a lot of fun. That'd be an easy way to do it, one would think. Any news we should touch on here first? I mean, I think everything's pretty much good to go. Stix, have you seen anything come through?
No, really only thing for Sunday Night Football, it sounds like Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze may go, but for the main slate and our purposes here on Sunday morning, I would assume everybody here is up to speed with the injury news, as pretty much everybody that is not playing today was ruled out on Thursday and Friday, so we should be good to go.
All right, cool. Do we have our little link out on Twitter yet?
Yes.
I'm
putting it right now. I'll tag you in there. You retweet it, but if you want to kick us off, let's do it.
How'd last week go for you, Stix?
Dude, so GPP, it didn't suck. You didn't have to be that good last week. The scores, I'll pull it up. So in the game changer, that's that big single entry I like to play, and then I'll play cash to kind of balance it out. I would have min cashed if Gesicki's touchdown held, which sucks. I was cashing, and then Rachaad White on the last drive kind of came out there, and I was fighting away some Bucs ownership, which you were on, which I'm kind of upset that I didn't take it a little more seriously. It was like the Dan Quinn thing. It's like, all right, I kind of respect him. I think this defense will be better, not better. But yeah, dude, if Gesicki's touchdown, like everybody went to Yoshibas in that tournament because it's kind of a higher stake entry, and people do not get weird in their ownership. So I played Gesicki instead of Yoshibas, and that touchdown would have been massive for me. And then Jaleel McLaughlin, I played him in that too. He was like 1% owned or 1.9. I think it was me and one other guy. And he has 5 or 6 receptions for 1 yard. If he I think I lost by like 0.8. So I was like, dude, just don't fumble. I think when Jaleel fumbled, that cost me the pay line. But in cash, I was the pay line. So not a good week. I guess I ended up very close to even, but I would rather be a lot more comfortably in the pay line. So you just play Baker, you gotta listen, you said, and you do that. So
you got to listen to those Tampa Bay takes, man. Baker Mayfield crushed it. I loved it. He was my favorite quarterback last week. I've got another somewhat different quarterback to go with this week. Ghost, how are you feeling overall about today's slate?
There's 2 games, man, that for me, if they go off, it's going to be a week of a lifetime. And if those games flops, then I'll be dead in the water. But I really planted my flag this week. Week 2 is one of my favorite weeks just because people tend to look at game logs from week 1, or they kind of overreact to who was good and who was bad coming out of the gate. And for us, that sets up for a lot of great GPP plays.
Cool. Well, let's get into it. We're going to go quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. I'll start with you, Ghost. Let's go through a quarterback or two that you like here. We're going to keep this probably under 10 minutes or so, then go into running backs. But who's your quarterback you got to have today?
We're actually on a lot of the same guys, so it was kind of nice that everyone knows the drill. The 3 of us don't really talk before we all publish our takes and everything like that, just to keep the bias out of it. And when you ended up texting me saying that you got to edit your article, I was like, man, make sure to get Mike Evans in there. And then you're like, oh, I got to take a look at that. And then when I went to read it, I saw that you were on the Detroit passing game. And for me, it's really both sides of that game. Like, I will get into it with the wide receivers in terms of how I'm getting different in that game, because there is decent ownership in it. But Baker Mayfield, going right back to him in that Bucs passing attack, that besides Chris Godwin, no one's really playing it, right? So there are ways to get a little shifty with the Bucs passing attack, with how involved Rachaad White is, Jalen McMillan, Mike Evans. We're going to talk about a lot of those guys, but Baker and Goff, for me, the Detroit passing attack is really where it's at today. Those 2 guys are going to be a lot of my ownership at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I wrote up Jared Goff is this week's Baker Mayfield. Look, he's got a great, obviously a great matchup going up against Tampa. Tampa Look, they weren't good last week. There was a lot of, I don't know if I want to say broken coverage, but guys getting open, and they're going up against, Jaden Daniels, who they kind of got bailed out by going up against Jaden Daniels. I mean, he attempted one pass over 30 yards, two over 20 yards. He just wasn't pushing it down the field. And if you look at Tampa Bay's secondary, eye test last week didn't pass the test, but then even just last season, I mean, just terrible all around. It was the third best matchup for wide receivers. I want to say their starting slot corner, Tyke Smith, he's questionable. I don't see if he's been ruled out or not yet, but not a reliable rookie there in the slot. One wouldn't think yet, especially going up against Amon-Ra St. Brown, who runs 56% of his snaps out of the slot. Bucks are down a safety, two backup corners. Already bad for a bad unit. And they've got McCollum, who I believe is returning. He was had to get through concussion protocol. I'm not sure if we've got that news yet either, but overall bad. Vet Jamal Dean's back there on the right side. He gave up a lot of yards per route covered last week, 1.28. And he's going to see a lot of Jameson Williams, who is going to play through the ankle injury or is expected to play. So look, great matchup for Jared Goff, first home game. Get him on Ross St. Brown going. Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, another great play. Tight ends against, I can get to in the tight end spot, but tight ends against Tampa Bay is a very, very good spot to go. So he's going to be my number one tight end, number one wide receiver is Amon-Ra St. Brown, number one quarterback is Jared Goff. I am stacking up the Lions. Stix, are you on the Lions? Are you listening to my quarterback take this week?
I want to get there. I can't afford them. I'm punting quarterback again. I'm between. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is a staple play for me. I will have him damn near everywhere. I don't know if you guys listen to the podcast, but against heavy blitz rate teams, which goddamn, where are we at here? I'm sorry. Tampa Bay. Yeah, Tampa Bay blitzes a ton. I'll summarize here. Amon-Ra and Jared Goff against the blitz, 11 targets a game, 103 yards a game, 24 PPR points a game. So Amon-Ra St. Brown seems like one of the safest, yet also has a very high ceiling type of game here. Zion McCollum is going to play, but Antoine Winfield Jr. is out again. So
that's a big loss for Tampa, by the way. I didn't get to touch on that, but no Antoine Winfield completely changes that coverage for Tampa today.
Yeah, and they're still going to blitz a ton. Like, that is what that team does. So I'm all in on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I am paying down again for quarterback because I am trying to jam Justin Jefferson back in again this week. I know it didn't work last week, but my priority last week was Justin Jefferson and Tyreek. My priority this week is Justin Jefferson and Amon-Ra St. Brown. The two quarterbacks I'm playing in tournaments and cash, honestly, like they're really the only two I have, is Deshaun Watson and Justin Fields.
All right. So I went with Justin Fields last week on my one of my main teams, which was a big disappointment. I should have just played more Baker like I wrote up and told everyone to do. I had some Baker. I mean, it was nice, but Justin Fields last week. I get the don't talk me into Justin Fields because I don't want to play him, but you can talk other people into him. Is it just the rushing upside here? Like what the price, the rushing upside, the matchup for really running backs, but him too, but it's just what price?
Yeah, the price. I mean, he's going to get 12 to 15 carries. I think he's more of a cash play. I mean, the total in this game is like 37, 38 points. So I don't expect a lot of back and forth in a ceiling type of game for Justin Fields, just because I do think Pittsburgh should handle this one and the pace should be pretty low. And then Deshaun Watson's going to be my GPP quarterback. He's literally 0% out. But if there's any quarterback on this slate that has the highest probability of getting benched, it is also Deshaun Watson. So
yeah,
proceed with caution. But dude, Amari Cooper 6,200. We'll talk about him.
I wanted to do it. For what it's worth, I wanted to do it. The Jags have barely any DBs active today.
I think
it could work.
DJ may get the call to go down to Duval County and play DB. If someone gets hurt in walkthroughs, like David Jones is probably next in line. So no offense, David, but I would take out Amari Cooper over you if you had to cover him.
What's the weather like down there today? Because it was looking kind of rough. Cleveland, Jacksonville. This is via Kevin Roth. Most likely game to see issues, but we're still just playing a game of will storms pop up or not. I think the chances are pretty decent that we do indeed see some rain. He'll have a better idea later. Winds will be between 10, 15 miles per hour, gusts over 20 miles per hour. Does that do anything to talk you off of it, or is it not enough?
No, I mean, I've if anything, I'll pivot 30 minutes before lock and hate myself for doing it. But as of now, I mean, I think it's the same. It's literally the same forecast we saw for the Bucks game last week, and that it's Florida, man. It's just kind of like what happens this time of year. But that game it was very dark for a little bit, never really rained. So I think if it gets that bad, we just get a delay.
Ghost, any other quarterbacks you want to touch on here?
There was one for the afternoon games, and that's going to be Matt Stafford. Kyron Williams trending to be one of the most popular players on this slate, and rightfully so. I just don't think Arizona is getting the respect they deserve in a divisional game at home for the Cardinals, and I think the Rams need this win. I mean, they had a really tough matchup in week 1 against the Lions, and granted, they took it to overtime, but the Rams got to keep pace in that division, one of, if not the most competitive divisions in all of football. And they need this one. So going to Matt Stafford in the same price range as Baker and Goff, I'm really sticking to that $6K price range on DraftKings. So it doesn't change all that much in your lineups. And even the core wide receivers that you should be stacking with, the Rams have good punt options, just like Jalen McMillan is a good punt option with the Bucs stack as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, mentioning Matthew Stafford for the afternoon slate definitely creates some leverage on Kyron Williams.
Yeah, Stafford's pass catchers. I mean, you've got Kupp, who might go out there and see 20 targets again. Robinson, super cheap. Ty Johnson, super cheap. Parkinson, right? Tight end, super cheap. So yeah, you can, if you don't play Stafford, I would force in a Ram. Like I'm forcing in a Ram. They're too cheap, or there's too much upside with Cooper Kupp. I love Cooper Kupp. Obviously, he's one of my favorite wide receivers. Clearly, no Puka. The other quarterbacks I'll touch on real quick, and we'll keep it moving. Are we going to be shocked if Lamar Jackson has the best day for a quarterback? I'm certainly not. He put up 29 DraftKings points against Kansas City. Kansas City's awesome defensively, so I can certainly see him going out and putting up the most points. I wrote that he's probably going to, and that if you have the salary, get to Lamar Jackson. I don't think you have to be too cute there. We're kind of living in the value range, but Lamar Jackson's probably going to score the most points of the position. If he doesn't, then Derrick Henry has 2 or 3 touchdowns. I mean, right?
Yes. I think there's one guy I'm afraid of too that I really wanted to play again because I'm in ownership where I really like low-owned quarterbacks and low-owned stacks to kind of get different and then find value chalk like Jordan Mason we'll talk about in a bit. But Dak Prescott and Kyler Murray are the 2 quarterbacks I'm afraid of not having enough of this week.
Yeah. I saw a lot of people are getting on Kyler. And Dak, to me, I just want more. I want more weapons for him, man. I mean, you've got Lamb, obviously, you've got Cook, and that's all great. I don't know. I'm off Dak, so I'll go down with you if Dak goes off. I will mention just too that I do like Brock Purdy to some extent. Minnesota's better against defending the run than they are the pass. Mason's going to be huge chalk. I'm going to have a ton of Mason, but if Mason were to bust, Brock Purdy threw 3 touchdowns. He almost won the MVP last year, and he didn't score great last week, and people are probably not playing him. So I like Brock Purdy. So my number 1 guy is Goff. Sounds like Ghost is Baker and Goff, and Nick, who's going to be your top guy? Fields, maybe?
Give me Watson.
We didn't talk about him, but Jaden Daniels going to be the highest roster quarterback on this slate. The rushing upside's through the roof. That game could go off for hundreds of points, or it might finish 7-3. Like, it's too bad offenses, even worse defenses. Like the rushing upside for Jaden Daniels, we got to at least throw him out there. The only reason why I mention him now is because of the question from Tim here on the screen. Jaden Daniels is going to be my cash game quarterback. The rostership is there. The rushing upside is absolutely through the roof. So, I mean, that's where I'm getting my exposure to Jaden Daniels. I can't play a 15% rostered quarterback in tournaments and expect to pair that with Jordan Mason chalk. And then at that point, you're just building a cash game lineup in tournaments. So, I mean, if you're playing single entry to turn $5, $10, $20 single entries into double your money, Jaden Daniels is probably your guy, but I'm looking to finish first or last, and Jaden Daniels will not be in any of my GPP tournaments, but he will absolutely be my cash game quarterback.
Daniel, he saved his week with his legs. Like, he was not accurate. Not accurate throwing the ball, but it's a great matchup for him to get back on track. And I would have to imagine the coaches are talking to him like, "Hey, guy, it's okay to throw the ball a little bit here. I mean, he
Yeah.
wasn't throwing it deep at all, but it's a great matchup against the Giants. And on the other side, I've got people in my ear about Daniel Jones. I don't care what the matchup is for Daniel Jones. That guy sucks, and I'm not playing him. And I don't want to. I really don't want to play any of his pass catchers. I mean, we've got Robinson getting his balls targeted off last week. We've got a cheap tight end who I'm going to actually end up talking about because I have no other choice because the dude's like $2,500. And then you've got Neighbors. I mean, who was Daniel's wide receiver last year. So I don't know. Maybe they feed the guy, but what's it look like when you're feeding someone from Daniel Jones? It doesn't look good. This dude could get benched just as quick as Watson could.
I was about to say, Stix mentioned Watson potentially being a bench candidate. If there's ever a 1A, 1B to quarterbacks being benched, Drew Lock is sitting right there, man. Like, this would be the game that the Giants could actually win this if Drew Lock starts.
Drew Lock's better than Daniel Jones. I like Drew Lock now. I hated it when he came in. I think when he came in the league, me and you were on show Stix bashing that dude together. That was fun.
Good times, pre-COVID era. Real quick, Tim, to answer your question though, pay up on DraftKings would be Patrick Mahomes. Mid-tier would be Jaden Daniels, like Go said. In punt, I think you're just fine using Justin Fields in cash. So it depends on what you want to do elsewhere in your build. But ownership-wise and just overall value, according to the 80 model, those three would be your options for the highest floors for their price.
You like Mahomes more than Lamar?
In cash, yes.
Okay.
In tournaments, no. I think, like, I echo everything you said about Lamar having probably the highest ceiling on the slate. The only issue there is, can the Raiders keep it close?
Let's go to running back. Ghost, let's start with you over on running backs. I guess maybe we should address the chalk, which I find to be good chalk this week. Several positions, quite frankly. Jordan Mason. I made the point in the article that I think the Vikings might be a tad overrated, depending where you look as far as stopping the run. I know they look good against Singletary. That was a bad call by me last week. But I think Jordan Mason, that offensive line of the 49ers, can pretty much do whatever they want to whoever they want. So I'm in on the Jordan Mason chalk. Are you in on the Jordan Mason chalk, Ghost?
I am. It's not really like us, for people that have been watching the show over the years, that these, these 5 to 6K chalk running back, it's very anti Stix and I to be able to play these guys, but it's really hard to get away from Jordan Mason in this game, man. Like, he was, for numbers aside, just the pure eye test of the way that he was running last week, it was absolutely ridiculous to watch, man. Like, he was running super aggressively, like looking to just run over people, and I don't see how Minnesota is going to be able to stop him. Between Jordan Mason and Debo chalk, for me, it's very clear that I'm fine playing 5,200 Jordan Mason. I think DraftKings dropped the ball big time on that one, especially with CMC injury woes. Like, everybody had a feeling that he wasn't going to play week 2, and they just priced him at 5,200. It's really tough to get away from him, and they're not in the same boat, but you could almost make the same case for Zach Charbonnet, right? Like, if we're talking chalk running backs, Kenneth Walker not playing today. The thing with Charbonnet that I like, because I've always been a Charbonnet guy, I think he will figure it out eventually. I don't know what year he'll be able to take over that backfield, whether it's in Seattle or on a different team. But I think he is a capable starting running back in this league. I know his yards per carry don't exactly reflect that, and he's having some trouble finding the holes. But he's great in the passing game, man. Like, I have to think that Geno ends up checking down a little bit more this week with the way that offensive line has been struggling. And we could say all we want about the Patriots offense. Throughout the years, their defense just has constantly been elite, right? So I think they are going to be able to get to Geno. Playing Zach Charbonnet at 5,800 is perfectly fine. In tournaments, if I'm picking one of the two, it's Jordan Mason every day and twice on Sunday. But at the same time, for your cash games, if you're starting with Mason and Charbonnet at the running back position, I'm perfectly fine with both of those guys.
Stix, where are you at on Mason? Just real quick, yes or no, Charbonnet, and then let's hit on the Chargers chalk, and then we'll get into our other plays here.
Mason, 10 times out of 10 over Charbonnet. I'm okay if you use both, but yeah, I mean, the route participation, like, it wasn't a watered down offense, and like you said, they can run on anybody. That's just what this scheme is. So yeah, Jordan Mason, I think, is a lot different than free square running backs we've had in the past, because this offense did not skip a beat. Maybe just a little less targets to him, but this guy is getting 20 touches on a great offensive line at 5,200.
What are you going to do with the Chargers guys? So last week, great call on the show here again. In my article, I wrote up J.K. Dobbins is the best punt play on the slate, and he goes out and does it again. I didn't read my article and put him on my main lineup, but hopefully some other people nailed that one. I am an asshole for not doing that.
Dude,
And
if I just play him over Jaleel McLaughlin in the game changer, I think I finished top 12, and I had
you did the math.
I had the salary to deal. I did the math because I fucking thought about those two. I was like, I'm pissed off about that. I would have had to take like a $200 hit at defense, and that was easy to do. God damn it.
Are you playing Dobbins or Edwards or fading, Nick?
I'll play a little bit of Edwards and Millie Maker stuff, but in single entry or 3-entry max, neither.
I like them both. I like them both a lot. So if I wrote in the article, like if Edwards scores more than Dobbins, as in touchdowns, would not be surprised he'd be more used in the goal line. He looked not great last week, looked a little slow. Maybe that's just in comparison to J.K. Dobbins. If I'm taking chunk yardage plays, it's obviously going to be Dobbins. Dobbins, like people just forgot about him, but when he's healthy, he's like really, really good. And they had such a weird backfield for the Ravens. And he kept getting hurt. So it's hard for people to remember that. Going up against the Panthers, not good. Allowed the second most fantasy points to be scored on them in the league. That's even after Ken Walker exploited the Broncos. James Cook went off against the Dolphins. Detroit against the Rams. Achane against the Bills. They gave up more than all of those teams, not combined, but in their own previous matchup. So when you look at Carolina, they are just real bad against the run. Okay. I didn't explain that great, but they are. Go read the article. All the stats are in there. I can't see right now. I need my glasses. Give me one of the two. Or if I'm not going to play Dobbins or Edwards, I might even pivot over and play like the Chargers D, or play Ladd McConkey or something, because I want a piece of someone going up against Carolina. Now you do have the Chargers having to travel all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast, and that is a different body clock game for them in the early hour. So they're playing at 10 a.m. West Coast time, but that hasn't really seemed to matter that much. They're going to run on them. Give me one of those two. I would rank it probably Jordan Mason, top chalk, Dobbins, Edwards, Charbonnet, something like that. Are you in on these Chargers guys, Ghost, or is it just me?
The way that I hedge it is that I'm playing Dobbins. That's my running back DST combo for some of my tournaments. I'm fine with Chargers DST chalk. I mean, at the end of the day, everyone knows how I feel about defenses. I'm playing Dobbins, and I bet Gus Edwards to score a touchdown on sportsbooks. So that's the way that I hedged it. You don't always have to hedge just in your DFS lineups. If Edwards outscores Dobbins, it's because he's getting in the box once, if not twice. That's the perfect way for me to hedge it. I got 0 Edwards, but I bet Gus Edwards to score a touchdown and to score 2+ touchdowns.
So since we're talking about Dobbins and the Chargers, let me just tell you, last week we had Dobbins rip off 135 rushing yards against the Raiders in 10 carries, and now they're playing Derrick Henry at $6,700 over on DraftKings. He's the best running back on the slate. If you don't have Lamar Jackson, you're going to play Derrick Henry. That is what you should do. That's what I'm doing. The Ravens are going to put up points. Unless the Ravens defense goes out there and scores 30, Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson is going to have a great day. So give me Derrick Henry, number one running back on the slate. I don't care if he's chalk. That's something about me. Who's going to put up the most points? That's what I want. And I think Derrick Henry is going to be in the top 3 of running backs, and I'm going to be playing him. So now let's go around the horn with other running backs we're considering in GPPs. Nick, throw it over to you. If you want to say something about Henry, go for it. If you have other guys, do whatever you want.
Yeah, Henry, fantastic price on DraftKings. I'm using him in FanDuel. He didn't really fit in my builds on DraftKings, but I got my exposure there. I agree with you 100%. Should be a top 3 running back there. Up top, man, Jonathan Taylor is sub 5% owned. Like, what? That's an interesting spot. Again, can't really afford it because I'm prioritizing wide receivers, but I will definitely sprinkle some on Jonathan Taylor. Don't mind Alvin Kamara. I think that's a game stack type of build only. I love James Conner at 6,400 though. Sub 10% ownership. I feel like he'll be much higher than that. I don't understand why anybody would not want to use him. This is a great matchup against the Rams. They do not stop the run. Obviously, when Aaron Donald left, like that whole defensive line took a massive hit. It's just a guy that's going to get 20+ touches in a high-scoring game, so I'm in on that. Pretty much don't really have much interest in anybody else. Like I'm really planting my flag on James Conner. I will get a good bit of Derrick Henry, and I will try to pay up for Jonathan Taylor. But I'm seeing Breece Hall being the highest owned running back on this slate outside of Jordan Mason. I'm a hard pass on Breece Hall.
Yep.
And I guess maybe like large field GPPs, I'm okay with Brian Robinson Jr. just to kind of leverage the Jaden Daniels chalk, and then potentially Najee Harris for this, not the same reason because he's not the same player as Kenneth Walker, but for how much we harped on running against Denver last week and Kenneth Walker being our number one running back, I definitely will have some Najee Harris to kind of offset the Zach Charbonnet stuff.
You brought up Jonathan Taylor. I recommended in the Win Daily Discord earlier this morning that if you needed a low-owned guy to take a shot on, go with Jonathan Taylor. He's getting the same matchup Saquon Barkley exploited on Thursday Night Football, where he scored 3 touchdowns last week. It is a good spot for him. On the other side of the ball in that game, I think Josh Jacobs is an interesting low-owned running back that nobody's on. So Packers are going to have Malik Willis helming the quarterback, so they know that's not going to go real great, so they might as well see what Jacobs has left or can do in the exact same matchup that Joe Mixon went nuclear in against the Colts, who haven't been able to stop the run for 2 years. No one's going to play Jacobs. Him scoring once or twice, not impossible. Willis dumping it down to Jacobs, who's a good pass catcher, probably more likely than not. And then if they have, a little, if they're playing catch up, maybe Jacobs gets more involved there. I think that game overall is great for low-owned running backs, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs. I've got another guy I want to touch on briefly, but I want to throw it over to Ghost and get your input on any more running backs.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's playing Pacheco and Kyron Williams in that range on DraftKings. And for me, I have 0 of both of those guys. So that's sink or swim for me at the running back position. If you want to play Pacheco in the 4 p.m. only slate, or Kyron also in the 4 p.m. only slate, I think that's where you do it. But on the main slate, I have 0 of both of those guys. Yep. Because I'm playing Derrick Henry, and I will throw another name out there that we haven't mentioned yet, and that's Jahmyr Gibbs. We did talk about the Detroit passing game, and Jahmyr Gibbs is certainly a part of that, right? So I don't know if I'm reading the situation wrong or not. It's remain left to be seen, but Detroit did elevate 2 wide receivers off the practice squad for this game. We'll wait to see with their final inactive list. It probably end up coming out 30 minutes before game time, so we have another hour before that. But, I mean, if not both of those wide receivers that they elevated from the practice squad, including Tim Patrick, are playing, I don't know if Jameson Williams is going to hold up in this one, right? So we're going to talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're going to talk about Sam Laporta. We love both those guys, but Jahmyr Gibbs is 100% a part of this passing game, and nobody's playing him. So for me to be able to get away from David Montgomery running up the gut against Vita Vea, I want all the Jahmyr Gibbs that I could possibly get at sub 5% ownership in a range where everyone's playing Kyron and Pacheco.
I love the call.
Lineups.
What'd you say?
It goes to edit some lineups real quick.
Yeah, I've got Gibbs. I've got Gibbs in my.
That was pretty convincing. I'll take that as a compliment. If you're already editing lineups, that means I was convincing. So I'll take it.
I've got Gibbs in some golf stacks for sure. And that does, I didn't realize they called up 2 wide receivers. That does concern me a little bit with Williams, who I was getting a little overexposed to. And people are going to be chasing anyways after the huge game last week. That being said, a great matchup for him on paper too. So if he's healthy, Williams is a great play. I don't know if you can make the case it's better than going up against a slot. Maybe you could, but on the outside, it's certainly the best primary matchup for a Detroit wide receiver. But Amon-Ra is going to bounce out there too. He's only in the slot about 56% of the time. Would I say something like that? So yeah, I like the Gibbs call. Last person I'm going to jam in here is Jerome Ford. I like Jerome Ford's usage last week. I like him in the passing game. I like the price. The matchup leaves a little bit to be desired. Maybe if it's rainy, stormy, they get him a little bit more involved down there, whatever. Home state of Florida narrative. Hello, but he's from Tampa. They're not playing in Tampa. Jerome Ford is I didn't look at the ownership on him. I don't know if he's loaned or not. He's on the Browns.
It's really low, and the Browns are without David Njoku, right? So that's their main check down-ish option, I guess you could call it. No David Njoku, for Deshaun Watson to be able to move the football. Jerome Ford could easily catch 3, 4, 5 passes today.
Jerome Ford. Anyone else want to jump in on running back before we move on to wide receiver?
I do really like Brian Robinson a lot. I've always been a Brian Robinson guy, even when Antonio Gibson was in Washington. It's one of the worst offensive lines in football, but like we were saying, the Giants' defense is even worse. So if you're not playing Jaden Daniels in tournaments like myself, Brian Robinson, hopefully, I don't even, it's crazy to say that he'll be stealing goal line carries from his quarterback, but that's just the nature of being in a backfield with Jaden Daniels. Brian Robinson could easily go 15 carries for 70, 80, hopefully, yards and get in the box once. That's a great play at 5,800 on DraftKings.
All right. At the end of the show, we'll go through each position and give our favorite play because I know we're talking about a lot of guys, or just, rewind the show, watch the whole thing again, go with whoever you trust the most. Let's go over to wide receiver. We know you like Justin Jefferson, Stix. You kind of already touched on it. You can expand on it more. Just, take us down the other guys you're considering here at wide receiver. Let's stay. Actually, I don't care. Anyone you want, any price range, whatever you want, your best plays.
All right. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb is probably the only guy on the slate you could say, well, maybe Cooper Kupp, obviously, but 15 plus targets. I think this is a great spot for CeeDee Lamb. I'm going to go there in cash in tournaments. I'm going to pivot down to like a 8 to 10% own Justin Jefferson. I'm on Ross St. Brown's like a priority play for me too, so I'm trying to get both of those guys in there. I'm fading Cooper Kupp and GPPs, just hoping that he does not have a ceiling game and Arizona can find a way to kind of scheme him off there and make others beat him. Don't know if that's going to happen. Don't really love anybody else up there a ton. Amari Cooper, I think, is a priority play for me with Ghost, exactly what he's talking about with Tyson Campbell out. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a pass funnel, and that's kind of why I love Justin Jefferson. You can't really run on San Francisco, and this should be a back and forth game, a pretty high total, and it's under a touchdown on the spreads there. So I think Justin Jefferson should get 10 plus targets. And Jordan Addison's out too. Again, maybe they scheme him out of the game, but I don't know. I really trust KOC in his way to make Justin Jefferson available. I still think he was a great play last week. Obviously, playing Justin Jefferson last week, you had to have faith in the Giants' offense to keep it close. That just didn't happen. This is San Francisco here. They are going to score points. So I do think Justin Jefferson has a very busy day. And up top, again, maybe just someone like with how much we're talking about Baltimore's offense, Devontae Adams is kind of an unforgotten man here, or a forgotten man at 2% ownership like that. Touchdown, Amari Cooper. I think Chris Godwin and Malik Neighbors are fantastic cash plays. In tournaments, I think I'd rather have Chris Godwin just in case that game does go nuts. Other than that, I'm not really playing any mid-tier guys. And I hate chasing the points, but same reason Jordan Mason's underpriced. I think Allen Lazard is like a free square, and he's probably going to be pretty popular, like 15, 20%. I don't care. 3,300 against a pass funnel defense in Tennessee. I do not think you could run on Tennessee. That's why I'm fading Breece Hall. But Allen Lazard's 6'5", has been a zone killer his whole life, has great rapport with Aaron Rodgers. We obviously saw it last week. Take away that last touchdown with Tyrod Taylor. He still had a great game. He's just a matchup nightmare on the inside of the field for – I think that nickel corner and the safety for Tennessee are both like 5'9". So, yeah, give me Allen Lazard. If he gets 10 points, he paid off his salary in spades there. So, it's pretty much my wide receiver player pool.
Yeah, so I wrote up that Lazard was a bit of the touchdowns, they were fluky, right? One was on a free play and one was at the end of the game with Tyrod Taylor, but he's still so cheap, 3,300. He's the true wide receiver too for Aaron Rodgers right now because Williams is still working back up. What he played 15% of snaps or something last week. And then when you look at like the primary matchup for the Jets wide receiver, so you're going to have Garrett Wilson's going to be shadowed by Snead. And that's not going to be a fun time. He'll get he'll get his catches, but when you're getting shadowed by Snead, that's a downgrade. And then you look at Lazard, what he's going to do. Runs on the right side of the field about 45% of the time. That's going to put him on McCreary. To some extent, more on the left and Chidobe. So it's a good spot for him. And look, when Snead's on top of Garrett Wilson, then he's going to have to throw to somebody. Allen Lazard's going to be the person that's on the field the next, or if not the same amount of snaps, because it's not going to be Mike Williams. Maybe he goes to the tight end, maybe he dumps it to Breece Hall, but a $100 wide receiver in Allen Lazard, yeah, easy play. I've got a lot more wide receivers I can talk about. Ghost, I want to get to you though. Who do you like over here at wide receiver?
I'll leave you the deep dive for Amon-Ra St. Brown, but that is my top guy for the week. Before you even published your article, it was funny because I texted you saying, can't wait to talk about Derrick Henry and Mike Evans for an hour. And it was, I was typing the text and I erased Mike Evans, put Amon-Ra, and then I put Mike Evans back and I was like, hey, you know what, I'm going to
Did you?
Mike
I
Evans.
didn't
But
notice. Yeah.
yeah, I was going back and forth, but those are my two guys this week. I talked about Baker and Goff in the quarterback portion of the show, and you can't really build all your lineups with those guys without their top targets. So I get the Chris Godwin love. I have zero Chris Godwin in tournaments. I want ceiling plays. I want touchdowns. I want guys that can go for 40 plus DK, and I get it. Chris Godwin has one of, if not the safest floor on the entire slate, especially in a full PPR format on DraftKings. But I mean, there's no upside there to me in tournaments when I could play a 5% owned Mike Evans right under Cooper Kupp, which everyone's going to be playing. And I will be as well. I talked about Stafford being my number 3 quarterback there. Those are really my 3 guys. I think they're 1, 2, and 3 in the slate in scoring at the wide receiver position, which leads me to say that I can't play everyone. So I have 0 CeeDee Lamb and 0 Justin Jefferson, and that could absolutely kill me today. But that's where I planted my flag. It's Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Mike Evans towards the top of the pricing grid. One guy I will mention that I don't want to say I'm underweight because no one's really playing him, but that is why I want to mention him, and it's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. In one of the greatest rivalries in the sport right now, those two teams absolutely hate each other. They're going to Arrowhead. It's like that to me is a ceiling game. If you can get one, you're getting a playoff type atmosphere in week 2, where if you're not concerned about Joe Burrow's hand and the injury that he's kind of had lingering on him, with no T. Higgins again, we talked about guys like CeeDee Lamb and Cooper Kupp getting 15 targets. Jamar Chase could easily get 15 targets today. And if the Bengals go out there and absolutely go nuts, it's still one of the best offenses in football. Joe Mixon now being in Houston, they're going to have to throw the football a ton today. So getting Jamar Chase at sub 5% to me seems absolutely crazy when you're looking at a guy of that sheer talent in tournaments. If you're looking for that upside, I'm not opposed to being completely overweight on Jamar Chase. It's just I landed on Amon-Ra St. Brown, Cooper Kupp, and Mike Evans as my trio. But if you're going to Jamar Chase, I'm perfectly fine with that as well.
Yeah, I should have dug into the Mike Evans stuff a little bit more. I like, for whatever reason, I'm kind of wanting to fade the Tampa Bay side because they went off last week. I don't think they're going to be able to do the same thing. So if you look at Detroit's numbers from the first week, they were playing the Rams and they were just getting, cut up by Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford. You do have rookie corner Arnold out there who's going to be on Evans. Let's call it 25% of the time. Carlton Davis got beat up. Robertson, got beat up last week too, and it was all kind of by Cooper Kupp. The way that these Tampa wide receivers line up, they kind of all switch all over the field. If you're looking at like slot routes, it's going to probably be more McMillan now. McMillan, that's going to put him over on, I guess, Arnold, right? He's going to be covering the slot the most. So you're going to have McMillan on the rookie the most out of the slot. Not a bad place for McMillan. He's a good punt. I do like him. I liked him last week. Evans and Godwin are both set up just fine. Like I really can't talk you out of either of those guys. As far as Chase, I'm not personally on him just because I know I'm spinning up on Kupp and on Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I can't get there. Same goes for me. Like I was looking into the Lamb matchup. It's a good matchup. If the game stays closer, should be a great matchup for Lamb. He was crushing it the first quarter. Game got away from whoever the hell the Cowboys were playing, and they didn't need to throw it to him anymore. And they wanted to feed Zeke at least once. So, yeah.
Watson and
Oh yeah, great. Give me so yeah, I've got Kupp number 1, but I'm taking one of these wide receivers, or I've got Amon-Ra number 1, Kupp number 2, but I'm taking one of the Rams wide receivers. I don't care if it's DeMarcus Robinson, that's fine. I don't care if it's Ty Johnson. I care a little bit more if it's Ty Johnson. I'd rather have Robinson or Kupp. They get the best. But yeah, I'm taking one of these guys. If you want to read all the stats about why Kupp's a great play, you can either go look at a game log for the past 3 years, or you can go read the article over at windailysports.com. Promo code Sicko. I'm into Brandon Ayuk today. Brandon Ayuk. So this really comes with the Mason fade, and I mentioned that I do like Purdy, and we established Vikings are probably good against the run, that they're worse in the secondary. But look, if you look at the Vikings' 3 starting corners, they all 3 ranked bottom 50 in yards per route targeted in week 1. That's not really that great. If you look at Ayuk, he didn't get targeted very heavily last week, but that was because you had the Mason game. All of the corners are giving over 1.09 yards per route covered and over 10 air yards per target. Ayuk has the highest projected target share on the 49ers and the second highest yard route run in week 1. Now, he didn't get many targets, but it's the second highest yards per route one in week 1, and that is only behind who? Tyreek Hill. So if you can beat the Minnesota Vikings over the top, which I think that you can, just based on the numbers from week 1, Brandon Ayuk is going to be a sleeper that people are going to be missing out on, because I don't love the Kittle matchup. I don't love chasing Deebo Samuel that much, even though I do think he's still going to be clearly involved. And if the Vikings stop Mason, I think it's going to go to Brandon Ayuk. No snap share. That was bullshit anyways. So give me Brandon Ayuk. After that, if you're fading the Chargers guys, Ladd McConkey, he's cheap enough. Is Palmer out? Do we know if Josh Palmer's out or is he playing?
No, he's playing.
He's playing? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Ladd McConkey's still there. I like the run game better. Rattling off a few more names. Xavier Worthy. I'll go right back to him. I know some people think that was kind of fluky too, but if you look at the best primary matchup up against the Bengals quarters, just based on yards per route covered and air yards, that's who Worthy's going to be on the most. So he's going to get a deep one today, guys. Worthy is going to be another great play. Last guy I'll mention that we haven't talked about is Tyler Lockett. I'm taking Tyler Lockett over DK Metcalf. I'll take Tyler Lockett over Charbonnet. DK Metcalf's going to be shadowed by Christian Gonzalez. Get used to the name Christian Gonzalez. A lot of people don't know him yet. He was on Jamar Chase last week. He's going to be shadowing DK Metcalf. What's that mean? Lockett's going to be wide ass open, or more open than Metcalf, surely. So give me Tyler Lockett out of the receivers for Seattle. Cool. Is that a lot of talking?
I love Brandon Ayuk.
You like Brandon Ayuk?
Yeah, I do like Ayuk. There's a couple guys in that range I didn't get to touch on, so I'll kind of mention them now. And I share the same love for Brandon Ayuk. I will mention Rashee Rice as well, trying to be a really popular play today. It looks like he's going to get 15 targets a game in that offense, man, and rightfully so. I mean, with the overhaul that they've had over the years at the wide receiver position, Rashee Rice is clearly the top guy. And when you have Patrick Mahomes throwing you the football, that certainly doesn't hurt, right? So I am playing Worthy in tournaments over Rashee Rice, strictly an ownership play. And we talk about big playability, and that's why I'm not playing Chris Godwin in tournaments. Xavier Worthy's got that big playability, right? So I do think he goes for a 50-plus yard touchdown today on a deep ball. At 6,100 on DraftKings, absolutely love Xavier Worthy. Birthday boy Terry McLaurin. If you are playing for some fun narratives, even if it's in a 25-cent contest or $1, you gotta have fun with what we do here. And Terry McLaurin with the birthday narrative. If you are playing, Jaden Daniels had an absolutely abysmal week 1, but at the same time, it's a get right spot for both sides of the football in that entire game, right? So we did talk about that. Nobody's playing Terry McLaurin today. I will at 5,700, and very affordable stack if you do want to play Malik Neighbors at 59. And in terms of punt plays, my guys are going to be Jalen Naylor with Jordan Addison out for Minnesota. They will absolutely be chasing points today, and I am a big Jalen Naylor guy. I'm not too worried about the snap count difference between him and Brandon Powell in week 1, because Jalen Naylor was nursing a bit of an ankle injury there, and he logged 3 full practices in a row this week versus 3 limited practices in week 1. So he is fully healthy. Jalen Naylor is clearly the wide receiver 3 in Minnesota, now elevated to a wide receiver 2, gets a half decent matchup there for Sam Darnold, for him to throw him the football. And Jalen McMillan will always be my guy. Get used to the name Jalen McMillan. Yep. He will always starting in 3 wide receiver sets. Tampa is going to be chasing points. Vegas thinks they're chasing points. When in doubt, do put your faith in what Vegas thinks will happen. They're pretty good at this whole betting thing. So Jalen McMillan, he gets moved around the field all over the place. He's very versatile as a wide receiver. Does not play like a rookie. He's a big body. He's able to grab those 50-50 deep balls from Baker Mayfield. Same reason why I like Mike Evans. And for that reason, I'm not playing Chris Godwin. I want the big playability. I'm going Baker with Jalen McMillan and Mike Evans as my stacks. I'm not playing Rachaad White with Baker. It's really those two guys. So I do have Jalen McMillan as my top owned punt wide receiver of the day.
I love McMillan. He's so good. He's so good. People forget about him.
He's so good.
He wasn't he injured in the national championship last year? Didn't he take the whole season off essentially?
He was.
He good. Tight ends, we good? Stix. All right, let's go. Tight ends from a boy Stix Picks. Who you got?
I like Laporta. Unlike you, I do think George Kittle is in a great spot. This is a Vikings team that is going to blitz a ton and play nothing but zone. The blitz is advantage Brandon Ayuk. He's going to be the hot route guy, and that's where I really like him. I think George Kittle finds a ton of space inside the zone here. So if you're playing the card that Jordan Mason busts, I think a double stack of obviously Ayuk or Debo, or going Ayuk and Kittle, is something I'm very interested in. Evan Ingram, I think on a buyback's a good spot. Mark Andrews, 5K, by all means, that is way too cheap. Brock Bowers, I mean, for 8+ targets, I don't know how his price didn't rise. This is a negative game script where they should be passing a lot. I like him a ton.
Yep.
I'm probably out on Colby Jack Parkinson, 20% ownership, just not interested in that at all. Jordan Akins, probably not interested at all. Luke Schoonmaker, probably more interested there. And then Theo Johnson, I know you're going to touch on. But for me, it's just like, dude, Mark Andrews is 5K. That's pretty interesting. And Brock Bowers, assuming they are chasing points all day long at 4,400, is fantastic. And then Pat Freiermuth, I guess, is a honorable mention. Trey McBride, too. I mean, it is what it is, right? I don't need to talk about Trey McBride. Right. You guys understand who he is. But George Kittle, I think, is a GPP game changer today and is in a Millie Maker lineup.
You want me to tell you who the fade is? Millie Maker, Jesus. I'm fading Gesicki. Fade Gesicki. I think do you like Gesicki Stix?
I mean, I love him as a fanboy. I think he's very hard to cover. But
no, I don't know if people are playing him. I just think it's a terrible matchup for him. I mean, it's what Mark Andrews ran into last week where they were all over him. I mean,
yeah, but he's not going to line up on the line. He's going to play like the role that Isaiah Likely did. No, I do like him as a pivot off of Colby Parkinson, absolutely. Okay. But I'm just trying to make my build not have a 3.1 or lower tight end.
Okay, that's fair. Sam Laporta, my top guy. Tampa defense, absolutely terrible. I touched on the top of the show. Look at what they did against tight ends last season. Again, didn't make any positive changes. Third most fantasy points to the position for the first 17 weeks, gave up third most receptions and third most total yards. They were targeted at the highest rate in the league. Sam Laporta day, him, Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they're going off. So last week, as far as tight ends go, I was recommending the really cheap guys, right? The guy from Carolina, I don't even remember his name. He's irrelevant to me now. He caught one pass. And then Zach. Yeah. And then Zach Ertz, who won someone $1 million, by the way. The cheap guys were the way to go last week because no tight ends did anything. So those were actually like really great plays that you didn't waste your money on. A guy that I'm going to spend down on is going to be a Theo Johnson this week of the Giants. Although I wrote down in my Apple notes, don't play Giants for the rest of the season. Here we are. Threw that out. Dude was out on the field. He plays tight end, by the way, for the New York Giants, if you don't know that. Out on the field, 86% of the snaps last week, getting 4 targets, takes on the worst pass defense in Washington. Daniel Jones attempted 7 10-yard plus passes, 2 20+ yard passes, and not a single pass over 30 yards. The dude is terrible. He's going to try and target Theo Johnson again. Catch 2 balls at 2,500, I think is what your price is. That's fine. You get a touchdown, fine. Worst defense in the league, great. Cheap tight end, bad defense, terrible quarterback. Cross your fingers. Theo Johnson. Last guy I'll touch on before we get over to Ghost with your tight ends is I'm going to take a shot on Taysom Hill. People seem to be backing off of Taysom Hill. We saw him involved last week. His price went down for some reason to 3,900. He rushed the ball 5 times. I'll take that from a cheap tight end, 3,900. He was targeted in the red zone, just didn't come down with it, or there was PI or something, I forget, or holding. Just didn't That would have nuked the slate into oblivion. They've got the red zone packages for Taysom. They just didn't need to pull them out last week because they were thumping the absolute loving shit out of Carolina. So they're going to be in a dogfight this week, one would think, Dallas. So yeah, it's not a great defense. Excuse me, it is a great defense. So maybe the game's closer. Should definitely be. Maybe they pull out the Taysom Hill package, 3,900, and he wins us a whole bunch of money. So give me Taysom Hill is my last tight end that I'm going to talk about today, even though there's other value guys that are in the article. Ghost, where you at on tight end?
Laporta, McBride at the top. I'm trying my best to stay in that range towards the top of the pricing grid with everyone, punting tight end, especially after week one. Like I was saying, that's why I love week two. People tend to overreact to week one. And while it was a tremendous play in week one, that's because the elite tight ends pretty much all went 4 catches for 40 yards. Like they all had almost identical stat lines. I do not think that's the case in this week. With my Stafford stacks, McBride is the perfect run back option. I'm using him or Greg Dortch primarily as run backs to my Stafford stacks, and I much prefer playing Trey McBride. So at the top of the pricing grid, those are my 2 guys. I don't have enough Mark Andrews, and I know that. At 5K there, I feel like people are going to overreact to Isaiah Likely, but when you look at the actual game that was played in week one, they were all over Mark Andrews, man. Like this guy was getting quadruple teamed in the middle of the field. And it's not to say that Vegas won't do the exact same thing. They're not the same caliber defense, man. I really do think Mark Andrews gets going this week. And as much as I love Derrick Henry, and he's probably my second favorite GPP running back, getting Mark Andrews at virtually the exact same prices of Isaiah Likely is absolutely wild to me. So
yeah.
I don't have enough. I acknowledge that. Don't be like me. Make sure to play Mark Andrews in tournaments. My pump play, look, Parkinson's going to be my cash game tight end. And as much as I don't want to be pairing him as my second option with Matt Stafford with Cooper Kupp, that's a lot of ownership there. I think he'll be fine today. Even if he goes 4 for 40 at 3,100, there's not all that much more you could ask for. But my pivot in that range is actually a guy that we did not mention yet, and that's Tucker Kraft. I am a firm believer of Tucker Kraft over Luke Musgrave in that offense. Backup quarterbacks throw to backups. And even though Tucker Kraft should be the tight end one, he operates like the tight end one in terms of snap count, in terms of route participation, in terms of target share, in terms of everything. Tucker Kraft on paper looks like the tight end one, even though he's not. Backups throw to backups. Malik Willis is familiar with Tucker Kraft. They were both on the sidelines as Tucker Kraft was rehabbing an injury. He was one of those main guys in training camp, getting passes nonstop from Malik Willis. So I don't think they're going to try and reinvent the wheel there, and they're not going to try and use the exact same playbook that Jordan Love is able to execute. I think it's going to be a lot of Josh Jacobs. Marshawn Lloyd is active. I think we might see a little bit of Marshawn Lloyd today. He's a very talented back, and I think Green Bay does want to see what they have in Marshawn Lloyd. It's going to be very simple throws, man. And Tucker Kraft at 3,300 is a great red zone target for Malik Willis when they do end up getting there. And if, not to say Indy could stop the run because they really can, but if they somehow find a way to stack the box enough, especially in the red zone against Josh Jacobs, Tucker Kraft's my guy there at 3,300 as a GPP pivot that is probably going to be, I'd be shocked if he's over 2 to 3% roster.
You're the only one playing him.
That's great.
The only guy. I'm the only guy playing Tucker Kraft. And no, but we're talking about really cheap tight ends. You could talk about any single one of these guys making the exact same case, right? Like you want to play a tight end that nobody is playing. No one's playing Tucker Kraft today. I will be in large field tournaments.
Now I got to redo all my lineups, Ghost, because you just talked me into Tucker Kraft.
Backups throw to backups.
Malik Willis joined the team like 10 days ago. I don't know, boys. I think that's a grade A stay away.
Backups throw to backups. He's gonna have to keep it simple as a very cheap play at the tight end position. Everyone's gonna go to who they're familiar with, whether that be Zach Ertz, whether that be Conklin, whether that be Chalk Parkinson. making the case for Theo Johnson. It's the to me, it's the same style of play, right? You're like, man, can you go out there and go 2 to 3 catches for 30 yards? It's the same thing with a guy like Tucker Kraft, and I think he absolutely can do that.
All right, let's go through this real quick. We're going to do our favorite quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. We'll just go around the horn. We'll go Stix, Ghost, and me. Stix, give us your favorite quarterback.
I mean, I don't like him, but I have to play him, and I think the upside's there in the back and forth nature of this game. Sean Watson.
Say it louder.
Honorable mention Brock
Say it
Purdy.
with your chest. Say it with your chest.
Honorable mention Brock Purdy. The purest form of leverage is going to Brock Purdy in the passing game. So he's my honorable mention, but Deshaun Watson.
Ghost.
Ride or die with the Tampa-Detroit game. I'm going Baker and Goff. Honorable mention Matt Stafford. That is 75% of my exposure at the quarterback position today.
All right, so we've got some overlap here today because my favorite GPP guy is Goff, so me and Ghost are on Goff. My favorite leverage play is Purdy, so me and Stix are on Purdy, and my favorite overall scorer is Lamar Jackson. I'm not straying away from these guys. Those are the guys I'm playing. Purdy, Goff, and Jackson. I think that's legit going to be it for me. Running back, let's go over to Stix picks.
Jonathan Taylor paying up. Overall value, James Conner, obviously Jordan Mason, honorable mention. Well, I'll let Ghost talk about his guy. But yeah, James Conner, Jordan Mason, Jonathan Taylor.
Yep.
Jordan Mason chalk. Do not play cash games if you're not playing Jordan Mason today. Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry. That duo will outscore the Pacheco Kyron duo, and the field will regret not playing Jahmyr Gibbs today.
I love Gibbs.
I've got some Gibbs. I like the chalk guys, so we don't need to get into that. I like Taylor as the contrarian spend up. I'm just going to give you one guy. I'm not playing Jackson on the majority of my quarterback lineup, so I'm playing Derrick Henry on DraftKings. Cheaper on DraftKings than over on FanDuel. FanDuel guy that I like the most probably over there is Gus Edwards. He's super cheap, cheaper than on DraftKings, allows you to build a little bit differently over there. So I'll take Gus Edwards for 1 or 2 touchdowns today. So makes him viable on both sides, honestly. Wide receiver, Ghost. I'm sorry, Stick. Just give me 1 or 2.
I'm going to go high, mid, low, Justin Jefferson, Amari Cooper, Allen Lazard.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I got to dig into the Cooper matchup now. You got me worried here. All right, Ghost, who you like?
I'll leave you our guy. Mike Evans at the top. I have a surprising amount of Terry McLaurin, so I'll say Terry McLaurin in the mid-range and Jalen McMillan wins somebody $1 million today.
Yeah, McMillions. I like him. Let's go with, for me, look, my top guy is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I'm going to have a ton of Cooper Kupp, so I'll eat the chalk. I don't care. Good for me. Y'all should fade it. My mid-range guy no one's playing is Brandon Ayuk, and you don't have to play him with Purdy, but you can play him with Purdy if you want to get a little bit different. And I'll say a guy that's going to go drop 18 plus today, Xavier Worthy. I think he gets a long touchdown, so that should do it for Xavier Worthy. I agree with Allen Lazard, who you mentioned. Tight end, let's go back over to Stix.
George Kittle, Brock Bowers. That's it.
I told you I love Bowers, big Bowers guy. Maybe not today for me, but over the season. And today, this is the day I'm not playing a lot of him, so I'm sure he'll go off. Ghost, who do you like?
Laporta, McBride at the top, fading that mid-range, and I'm going Parkinson and Tucker Kraft as puns.
Kraft. I'm going to get some. I'm going to get my 3 guys. Sam Laporta, number 1 tight end, best value that's under the radar. Give me Theo Johnson, and someone that's going to win someone $1 million is Taysom Hill. So that should do it. That should do it for us. Hop into the premium Win Daily Discord. Use promo code SICKO to get 50% off. We will answer your questions there. Go over to the site. You can see Stix article, Stix projections, Ghost projections. Am I saying this all correctly so far? And everyone else's articles over there, including our bet picks for today. So promo code Sicko, 50% off. We appreciate everyone watching, and we will catch you on the Twitter sphere, X sphere, one of those two. Give us a follow too. Thanks. Bye.